This cord keeper is a simple project you can make with scraps of fabric, and it uses Velcro tabs, so you can leave this on while you're using the mixer, or you can take it off. You'll cut 2 pieces in each of your fabric pieces, and it's important that they mirror each other. So the easiest way to do that is to place your fabric wrong sides together and then cut out each pattern piece. But if you're cutting this from scraps of fabric and you don't have the room to fold the fabric over, then you'll want to cut one set with the writing on the pattern piece up and one piece with it down, and that'll give you mirrored pieces. And then you also need 2 pieces of Velcro that are 1.5 inches long each. To start, line up all your pieces so you have back right, front, side left, and back left. Now you're going to place right sides together and line up these edges and clip them into place. Now you'll sew each of these seams together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Press each of those seams open. Place your 2 pieces right sides together, line up the seams, and clip into place. You're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sew all the way around the edges, leaving an opening at the end so we can turn it right side out. When you get up to a seam, keep your needle down and lift your presser foot so you can follow the straight edges of this piece. Clip each of your corners and trim your seam allowance, staying about 1/4 inch away from your stitching. Your opening. Now you can turn it right side out. Next, you can press the seams. Top stitch all the way around, about 1/4 inch away from the edge. The next step is to sew your Velcro pieces on. So if you imagine this is wrapped around your KitchenAid mixer, the edge of this piece will almost meet up with that seam. So we're going to place one piece of Velcro about 1/2 inch away from that seam, and then the other piece about 1/2 inch away from that edge. Next, we can sew our tabs. We'll place right sides together, and you're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance and stitch all the way around, leaving an opening on the end to turn it right side out. Clip each of your corners and trim your seam allowance to about 1/4 inch away from your stitching, and you'll leave this end with the opening uncut. Now you can turn it right side out. Press your seams. Top stitch about 1/4 inch away from the edge all the way around. Next, we can sew our tab onto the main piece, and we want it to wrap in the opposite direction. So this one's going to wrap this way, and we want our tab to wrap this way. So we're going to sew it onto the left side panel, and you're going to have this top corner about 1/2 inch away from this seam. The last step is to sew your other piece of Velcro on. So one piece of it will go about 1/2 inch away from the end of this tab, and then the other piece will go on your right side panel. So this is the side panel here, and you'll just center it between the 2 seams and the top and bottom. And there's your finished cord keeper.